So
Okay,
please then just inform once we can start, okay?
yes, we can start. Now
right.
It's recording.
Okay, great. So good morning, everyone. We'll start our technical webinar on the topic Developing KPI and Data Collection Program for the NBS Implementation and Monitoring. So this is a huge topic on the NBS and the Urban GreenUP specifically project. So the main focus of this webinar will be to focus on the design itself of the key performance indicators, the KPIs, to monitor the nature-based solution interventions, the NBS. So this will be a good opportunity for everyone involved to delve deeper into this sometimes complex, sometimes not so complex process of the KPI selection process and the procedures behind the data collection. And we will also have the testimonials from the three front-runner cities, Valladolid, Liverpool, and Izmir. So we'll start first with Jesus from GNB. He will give a brief but a very important insight into the excuse me, into the KPI selection process. Then we'll proceed to the data collection procedures, also by Jesus. And then afterwards, we'll have the exposition from the front-runner cities. So first, Alicia will be presenting the Valladolid exposition. Then Stella will be presenting the Liverpool exposition. And finally, Ezra will be presenting the Izmir exposition. And at the end, we'll have time for a quick question and answer and to draw some important conclusions on the topics that have been covered. And well, hope you enjoy, and please feel free always to ask any questions that you may have. Okay. So
thank you, Joel. I can take the floor.
Okay, sure. Please go ahead.
Now I can show my screen. Yes, I can show my screen. Let me know when it's already.
So we can see. Yes.
Perfect. Let me try to hide this panel here. Okay, doesn't disturb me. And yes, thank you, Joao. Thank you all for attending this webinar. Thank you, Joao, for the presentation. We'll be commenting today about the developing of the KPIs that we made, of the selection process we faced during this past, let's say, almost 6 years of the project, Urban GreenUP, and also we'll comment in brief the data collection program performed for monitoring the implementation of, well, not for monitoring the NBS. Let's start with the KPI selection process. We had a clear objective. It was to establish the monitoring and the evaluation strategy for each of the implementations that were going to be performed in the cities. We had a great team inside of the consortium working on this. You can see the names of the logos of the companies below in the presentation, the part below. The idea was to have a robust monitoring scheme to monitor the performance of the nature-based solutions, to assess the impact against the challenges that each of the cities or the whole cities are facing. We'll get to that in a second about we'll comment on the challenges. About the process or the Gantt you can see here is what we performed during these past years. We started with the selection of the KPIs and at the same time defining the data guidelines. Then we had to start monitoring at the same time while they were starting the constructions of and the civil works of the cities. Therefore, we had a baseline to monitoring, and then after the implementation of them, we'll be able to provide a comparable measure in order to analyze the results. Then we had to supervise the data collection and the ICT tools implementation, or what ICT tools are we using and how are we using it. And we are now providing, given the results, given all the amount of work being done, we are now evaluating the results, and we'll be soon providing this assessment of the urban GreenUP project, and hopefully you'll find many of these solutions replicable, and maybe you can, if you are in the side of the decision makers of your city or your municipality or your organization, you maybe will be able to use the information we made for your further research or projects. About the goals, well, we had to define the KPIs, the key performance indicators for the NBS. We needed to define as well which ICT tools we were going to be using, define the monitoring scheme, and also supervise the data collection. And with all of this, once we had all in place in motion and we come with results, we derive conclusions, and we'll be able to make further recommendations. As I said, we had a great team. Well, this team is inside of the EU 2020 project. It was inside of the Urban GreenUP Consortium, and we had the need to build. We knew back then which intervention we were going to be putting in our cities, and we needed to find indicators for measuring the performance. But we, as the genius visual said, we didn't start the fire, it was always burning. The idea is we lean in previous knowledge, we lean in Eclipse. And you may ask, what is Eclipse? Well, if you Google Eclipse, you will find a different information about that. But Eclipse is an EU project. It was EU funded. It acts like a knowledge hub in which we use one of the very useful reports that they have in their website, and I encourage you to visit the site and to check and analyze what is there. There was an impact evaluation framework for nature-based solution that we use as back then, apart from other bibliography and other reference and other information we had, but we started mainly from here, and we choose not only the indicator, but not only some of the indicators as a reference, but also the definition of the challenges that each of the cities are facing in terms of climate mitigation, water management, air quality, green space management, all of the ones that you are seeing now on the screen. Each of the cities had a different approach, so we needed in the earlier stages to define not only some indicator for each of the challenges, but also we needed kind of a core KPIs to be able to put to compare and to draw information from one or another, and these are these core indicators. By using bibliography, by using the Eclipse as a starting point, we end up having a full list of indicators. You'll see in colors. The colors that you see in the KPI number are according to the challenge they are facing, as well as the numbers. And you'll see here in my right of the presentation. I hope if you're following this by screen, you will be your right as well. You see each of the cities that are calculating or using these indicators. You see here the list. I'm not going to stop a lot on this. You can have this information through our website, or you can drop any of us an email, and we'll be happy to share the information regarding this. The issue is we end up with 75 robust indicators, well defined, and mostly 40 per city. You know, not all the cities are calculating the same ones, but I will get to that. And 75 well-defined indicators that we provide in a manner that we were able to share this information. For example, according to the channel, we go to this particular indicator, in which we commented on what is the type of indicator, the name of the very same one, of the definition. In this case, is according to a certain methodology, academic supported paper address this topic. So we'll have this information link as well. The NBS that the specific indicator is measuring, or is affecting, or is related to, the measuring method that we are following, the unit, and the city. In the case of this, for example, in this table, we are putting an indicator that 2 of the cities are using this methodology and following. Well, in this case, there is no sensor associated, but if there were a sensor associated, we'll be here the information regarding that, the calculation method, and if you are using an external data source, or from which we derive some information. And this here is the second methodology followed for a different city, and you have the specific information as well. This is a summary table. We have this developing in further reports, and we'll be able, at the end of the project, we'll be able to share the full KPI definition as a material to be shared and to be lean on in order to do further information. I want to comment as well that one of our main issues at the beginning were, or not issues, let's say, one of our main goals was as well to be able to extend this, to sustain the methodology or the performance of the work done through time. So we started with technology, personnel, or tools that were already in use in the municipalities, in the cities. Some other methods that could be practical or easy to adapt, or easy to install or perform in the cities, and also other that would be worth exploring. The idea was to, for the long run, if we are using a technology that the people working on this type of things in the municipality know about, it's easy to extend it after the project ends, because maybe they can add it into the routines, and also our goal here was to make it sustainable after the project ends, to be able to continue doing these measurements, or maybe to adapt it to other tools or other situations, to build knowledge that can be useful for the future. And now I would like to comment briefly on the data collection procedures that we follow in the European project, which we've been collecting data. So what we can do with all of this? There are many directions, there are many options on the table that we can use. So we have to select one. We were encouraged to do the best one, the best approach, given the nature of the project itself. And as it's a European project and the funding is public, we needed to be open about this as well. So we follow the FAIR data principles. And for those that doesn't know about this, FAIR is an acronym for findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. What does mean? Well, the data has to be findable. We need to be able to find something if we are looking for it. We need to be accessible. We need to be able to grab it. We need to be able to play with it. It has to be interoperable, and that makes more that is more reference to the format, to the, well, for example, one of the example could be the format, to use some format of delivering the data that is not well known, is well used, and also the R is for reusable. The data has to be open, has to be, even if must be referenced, but has to be reusable for others to lean for the investigation, for the research, and everything. To be findable, we started with a simple and more straightforward approach by using metadata, really simple metadata, but powerful. We had here the metadata file definition to have some key elements that will ease the finding in a search engine easily. Then here you can see a simple XML file attached to the indicator, to the file, and with that we'll be able to have this information in place. In terms of making accessible, well, one of the first approaches, and we knew that has to be this way, is to make each of the cities in control of the data, each of the cities team, because in each of the cities there was a team, and inside of this project, even per cities, there were different monitoring teams per municipality, and it has to be able to each city has to be able to collect the data in our own data local storage or data storage, in which all the team can put information there, and also if they want to make accessible some of the data in there, they'll be able, because they own the repository, and they can do that. With that, we needed a further approach, because we needed to be interoperable, and we were thinking about having this global repository that we can make accessible through the project website. So icons provide us a cloud where all the cities can put together the data that they were collecting and storing in the local storage. They can put it in the cloud for the global, we can call it the global repository of the project. But also we come up with an additional solution for all of this. Once we have the data in the global repository and is well stored, and we can share it from our own means, this is very useful for project and also beyond. But we find could be a great opportunity to use an upper tool, a well-known tool, which is Zenodo. And for those that doesn't know what is Zenodo, Zenodo is an open access repository. It's funded by OpenAIRE, that is funded by the EU, and also, well, it's an EU funded repository. Allow the user to put files up to 50 gigabytes of data per user, and is one of the main things, and this was really a key element here, was you'll be able to collect this data from the next I don't know if 25 or 50 years also, let's say forever. So in that sense, it's a really useful for the long run, for the sustainable of the project, because all this European project, after 2-3 years, the website will used to go down, and we might lose some of the information, apart that there are repositories where we can collect this data. But in this sense, we'll be able to put all the information in another platform, and from there we'll have all the knowledge built during these past 6 years in here. It provides a digital object identifier for citations, or if you want to, I don't know, use some of the data, specific data that we provide for a specific project or research, you can use it and you'll be able to quote it. It's linked to GitHub and Binder in the case that you want to perform some other program coding scenarios in which you don't have to. You can go through directly, and the last one is free, is public, and that was a win-win situation for us and for all. So I think we had to do it, and we are really happy with this. And in a nutshell, well, let's say this complies with everything as well. So we are complying 2 times with the FAIR principles. But this, in a nutshell, is the monitoring program and the KPI selection that we perform in an upper level, let's say, in a high level approach for the whole project. And now you'll see the specifics in each of the cities. So really happy to hear from their side as well. So the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Jesus. It was a very efficient presentation regarding both the KPI selection process and the data collection procedures. I don't know if anyone from the attendance would like to ask any questions. Anyway, we'll have time for that at the end. Just want to mention that there is on the dashboard, there's a part where you can ask questions, and also there's the chat room. So if you want to add anything, please, you can always just write, and then we'll take our time to analyze that. All right. But since if I guess right now there is no questions, so I think we can proceed. So I'll kindly ask Alicia to go to the Valladolid exposition, please.
Good morning. Yeah, thank you, Joao, for the introduction. And I should be sharing my screen now. Please let me know if you see it, because you know the technology sometimes is not working. Okay.
Yes, we can see it, I think.
Okay, so let's go in here with the presentation on PDF and full screen. Let's see. Okay, so you should be watching my presentation.
Yes. Okay.
I will provide you some practical examples. There, some practical examples about our experience with the KPIs and monitoring along these years in the Urban GreenUP project, with practical examples. First of all, as Jesus mentioned, we are a team. We are a team of different organizations, and there you can see the logos of the different organizations of Spain that have been calculating KPIs for Valladolid demo. Cartif Technology Center, which are also the coordinators, ourselves, the Valladolid City Council, also, we are also calculating some KPIs, also Singular Green, but also the CENTA Foundation for water KPIs, like that Technology Center also, and GMB, which are also collaborating in the process. So thank you very much to all of you, which most of you are even here, to support Valladolid with the calculation of the KPIs. Valladolid is monitoring 46 KPIs, according to what Jesus mentioned, more or less 40. We can classify them into modeling models of calculating KPIs, socioeconomic KPIs, and also quantitative KPIs. And I will divide my presentation according to this to that structure of 3 types of KPIs. I would like, first of all, to mention a few generalities. It's very important to choose well your KPIs according to also the classification of SMART KPIs, which this can sound very theoretic, but it's very useful. Specific KPIs, measurable KPIs, achievable KPIs, relevant KPIs, and time-bound KPIs. So do not choose KPIs that you cannot calculate, you cannot get data easily, and so on. So please, reliable KPIs and that can provide accurate results. It's important for the cities. Second, make sure that you choose KPI that can provide the expected results. I mean, that can provide the benefits of the solutions or and being as positive as possible, because it's important to disseminate information. For the cities, it's important also that the KPIs need to be easy to communicate, because at the end, we need to deliver results not only to the European Commission, but also to our citizens. Our citizens need to know and would like to know the results of the project. So easy to communicate and visible. Choose KPIs that you can provide graphs and diagrams and photographs and not only numbers and maps. I mean, visible and physical results that they can easily understand. So according to quantitative data, I have chosen 3 examples of our KPIs. The first of all is related to temperature. Decrease in the mean and maximum temperature. Why did I choose this KPI? Because it's easy to understand and it's easy to measure. As you see in the screen, there are a few like violet windows with the tips that I selected for you for all the cities. These KPIs, use equipments. So the equipment is very simple. It's a thermometer. So everyone and all the city can install thermometers in the cities, and it provides real measurements with this simple equipment. So it's very easy to calculate. And it's easy to understand in the temperature, what is the decrease in this temperature, if the nature-based solutions decrease or not the temperature. It's a very simple KPI. But be ready that your thermometers do not may reflect what you will like. I mean, we expect all the nature solutions that we implement to decrease the temperature, but sometimes the thermometer do not reflect exactly what we expect. So be ready to get data you do not really expect have. For instance, another important thing to consider for the cities with this KPI is having a measuring methodology clearly defined. It's important to have a methodology easy, clear, and in fact that provide accurable results. For instance, Cardiff Technology Center implemented different thermometers in 2 streets of Valladolid. In one street is one of the nature solutions that we implemented in the Urban GreenUP project, which are our green shady structures, but they also implemented thermometers in a close by street, which is our reference street. So it's very easy to compare the results of the street that we implemented the nature solutions to the reference street. So it's a simple methodology and it works. On the other hand, as you see there in the screen, they could provide visible results and using different colors. As you see here, the street that is below, this is an image of the before the implementation. So you can see that the average temperature before the nature resolutions intervention it's more or less between 24 degrees, as you see there, which is painted in yellow in orange color. But if you see the next slide, you can see that the comparison between the street that has no nature solutions with the street that we implemented the nature solution, you see a difference in the temperature. So this is very simple and it reflects the reality, the results that we get, and it's easy to understand. So visible results and communicable results, important for the cities. And also, you can provide data like humidity and other factors with that you can represent in graphs like there. So it's easy to understand what are the different evolution of this KPI along the time. Once again, according to the simulation, it's visible, communicable, and it provides the expected effect, which is the reduction in temperature. So that's why I choose as a good example this KPI. Another good example is the nutrient abatement. These KPIs have been calculated by our colleagues of Lake Tat Technology Center. And it's also the methodology to measure this nutrients abatement. It's easy, it's accurable because this is calculated thanks to laboratory analysis of wastewater. So although the methodology is clearly defined and it's very accurable because as I mentioned, they are calculated in the laboratory. On the other hand, the concepts of COD abatement, what is the chemical or oxygen demand? What is the biochemical oxygen demand? Not everyone is very used to use this type of concepts. So on the other hand, it's easy to understand, but on the other hand, you need to consider that there might be technically difficult definition or the concepts might not be clear. According to the methodology, as I mentioned, it's thanks to water quality analysis, and although the definition of these technical concepts might not be easy, the results can be explained with diagrams and drawings that help the citizens to understand the results. So as you can see there, it's easy to reflect the effectiveness or not of the solutions. In this case, it's the effectiveness. It's beneficial. We have the results that we have are the expected effects. So we got positive wastewater treatment results. So it's also very good for the city because the native solution is working. What happens if you get unexpected results? There is no problem if you get not as possible results as you would like to, but you need to be sure that you can explain what are the anomalies, what are the different points that you see there in the graphs, that you see points which are just very high or very low. This is not normal, and you need to be technically as good as possible to make a reasonable understanding of the anomalies in the data. Another good example is the pollinators species increase, which were calculated by Cartif, the coordinator of the project. They defined a very clearly methodology, and this is very friendly KPI because it's according to dissemination, the concept of how many butterflies and beetles and flies are close to the native solutions. It's easy to understand. They also are using equipment to make different measures. As you see there is a very methodology, very clearly defined, and they get technical data thanks to field work. But what are some difficulties that we get is that you need to have enough time to the natural solutions need to be implemented for a long time because this type of pollinators only exist on spring and summer, and during the winter you cannot find any pollinator. So be aware of the timing also. According to socioeconomic data, we have been calculated very clearly also socioeconomic data. In our case, this KPI was calculated by us, by Valladolid City Council, and it's about the educational activities that we deliver. It's objective and it's easy to understand. How many people did you reach? Or how many activities of dissemination to the citizens you launched every year. So it's easy to calculate, and the only thing that you need to consider is having a very good database. About another KPI, the citizen perception on nature solutions. This is not an objective KPI, it's subjective KPI because we launched a citizen participation survey, so the citizens could provide us what were their opinions on our nature solutions. Some of them liked, some of them didn't like, so it reflects the opinion of the citizens. It's also a very good KPI, but it has the problem that this may not represent the whole citizen's opinion, but only the ones that have answered the survey. Like it always happens with the surveys, you need as many answers and as many people answering the survey as possible. And last, another KPI, the elderly people life quality. This KPI was calculated by GMB through the mobile application that they also create to Valladolid, and they launch different surveys through this mobile application that you can download on Google Play if you want. So it's objectively measurable data, it gets automatic data, it applies new technology, but it has the problem that only a few users can download or may download the application. So if you do not have so many users, the quality of the data that you will get will be low also. But anyway, it's possible to calculate also this KPI despite of the little data that we had. And last, about modeling data, modeling KPIs, that were the three examples were calculated by Cardiff, and some of them are related to geographic information system modeling. It's very useful because it provides maps, very visible and very practical to understand what the KPI is reflecting. Some of the problems that this type of KPIs may have is that you need good input data. If you do not have good cartography, the KPI will not work. So according to, like this example, green infrastructure connectivity, it measures what is the distance between green infrastructure in the city according to meters. Less than 50 meters, between 50 and 75 meters, more than 100 meters, and so on. So it's easy to understand. On the other hand, the trees density, this KPI was not very good because we knew and we know where we have planted all the trees thanks to the Urban GreenUP project. We have planted more than 2,500 trees in the city, but we do not have exactly where according to coordinates. So this KPI is not very accurate for us because we have, as you see in the screen, these huge areas where we know that we planted like 2,000 trees and so on, but we do not know exactly where. And my last example is about noise reduction of our green noise barriers. Once again, we are using equipment, a sound level meter. It's very accurate and it's easy to measure. But on the other hand, the methodology is also good because we are comparing what are the noise levels in front of the noise barrier in comparison with the noise levels in a reference street close to the noise barriers but not in front of them. This KPI have the problem that we are not modeling because we're taking like only single measurement with the sound level meter, and it will be also useful to have a noise map that really models the effect and the positive effect of our green noise barriers. And that's all from my side, and these are the examples that I wanted to share with you today. So thank you, and of course open to any comments that you may have.
Okay, thank you so much, Alicia. It was a very good, insightful presentation and dynamic. Because we are already a little bit behind schedule, I'll already carry on to Stella, if you don't mind, okay, for the Liverpool exposition. And I think we can let the questions to the end, okay? In the meantime, I mean, well, please, while Stella is sharing the screen, if you have any questions, okay, you may ask. But yes, just wanted to say, it's always good when you have a very dynamic presentation, because then not only it gets appealing, but also we can have a good insight to what happened, or at least what is happening in Valladolid. So, please, Stella, carry on.
So can you see my screen, or?
Yes.
Fantastic. So is that on full screen? Yes. So.
Yes, exactly. Please carry on. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay. Yes. So this is from Liverpool. It's a partnership from the Mersey Forest, Liverpool City Council, and the University of Liverpool. And yeah, we're just looking at, as the other cities have done, we're just looking at grouping the KPIs according to the data focus, and then we'll look a little bit at our perspective of the KPI choice as well. So as Jesus has mentioned, we use the CLIPS framework to select the KPIs. That was grounded in research, and to try and distinguish these links between the change and the nature-based solutions. But of course, because of these, mainly the sites were mainly identified before the project started, these intervention choices and the sites changed, and often then you felt that the nature-based solutions being retrofitted rather than looking at the actual detail required for monitoring the KPIs. So we defined, also using the FAIR and SMART principles already mentioned, but we defined that our successful KPIs as those who really could be individually assessed, looking at the straightforward data collection. Was it timely? You could collect it in a good time, and reliable data gained. And for the challenging KPIs, those might have been slightly more difficult to collect the data, might have been unexpected, and maybe looking at the intervention scale, could we have redefined that with hindsight? So again, we're grouping the KPIs, but I just wanted to mention the KPIs often drew data from different sources, but I will just focus on the different data focuses for now. So looking at the social economic based KPIs, these are basically mainly based on postal surveys and interview data, but of course there was some impact due to COVID. And we found that a successful intervention is due to the location, size, and how interactive they are in creating that change in behaviour. So we showed an example here with the green walls we have in Liverpool, excuse me, with St. John's Green Wall is very high up, very visible at 65 metres long, but it's just not interactive at all. You can't get close to it. This is the closest you can get to it. The public can get close to it. And this is the photo on the left here. And the other two green walls we've got are more interactive. You can get right close to them. You can pick strawberries off the Parr Street green wall. It's very close, but they tend to have low number of residents living near them. Parr Street was also very low traffic volumes, and unfortunately the Liverpool 1 green wall was only put in quite late, so it was a bit too late for the surveys data. And although they're very high traffic volumes nearby, so it would have been interesting to see how that developed over time. So successful KPIs, and I just want to note the green boxes are just descriptive text about each KPI. And we picked 2 here for the successful KPIs: new businesses and benefits from interventions. And these showed clear links between the interventions and creating positive change. With the challenging KPIs, the socioeconomic data, it's crime reduction and land and property price change. And we just found both of these, we couldn't distinguish between them to decide which one to choose as a challenging one, because we needed larger scale interventions really, and looking over a longer time period to see if there's any actual change. So to conclude for the socioeconomic, there was just a general lack of awareness of the Urban GreenUp project and the specific interventions. And we, because the interventions were put in very incrementally over time, there wasn't really a big bang where all the interventions are put in at once. And we sort of highlighted, realized that there needed to be a need for engagement with the community and really looking at more at the function and the size and the location. And we sort of looked at sort of these quantification of how these KPI, how the NBS is embedded into the environment is really needed to time to become important to people. So looking at the modelling data KPIs, there's a whole variety of models used, EcoServe, GIVAL, STAR and Condatis, basically looking at the valuation of the green infrastructure. But all of these models needed adjustments to values that weren't thought of when they were first created, such as green walls, pollinator planting. So we had to do a calculated estimate for these values. So successful KPIs for the modelling, green space accessibility, and like for instance, GIVAL could really look at precisely the number of people and households within 300 meters or 1200 meters of the interventions, and that was a positive change with a view of green space. Carbon sequestration, both EcoServe and GIVAL looked at this, and EcoServe looked at the annual uptake and GIVAL a difference between trees and grassland, but we had no value for wildflower areas, so we had to assign that as improved grassland. So ideally that would be reworked in time. Challenging KPIs, very much engagement with NBS. We couldn't define, we could look at the tourist numbers to Liverpool, but how do you know how many people interacting with the interventions? It was very difficult. We tried different things with the bio app and things like that, but it's very much difficult to really engage people. And this photo shows one of our floating islands in one of the parks where we've got the friends group of the park involved. So it was as interactive as it could be, but still people couldn't really access the island, really interact with it, really get engaged as much as we would have liked. So for the conclusions for the modelling data, many of the type codes had to be estimated, and there was a lack of scientific evidence for these. And especially those models depending on spatial data couldn't account for the surface area of the vertical interventions such as green walls. So it's difficult to get an idea of the actual area of the green walls. And many calculations for the models just too coarse, to really distinguish the interventions and any impact they made. So quantitative data KPIs, this is basically monthly data monitoring for most of them, using a variety of sensors and methodologies. And this is just a picture of our rain garden in Liverpool. So a successful one was nutrient abatement, such as for Vallée de Leaf, where it's very, very defined methods. We could collect monthly samples, get a wide variety of abiotic, nutrient and metal data, look at a wide range of pollutants through the whole watercourse, looking at the water flow around each intervention and things like that. So it was really, really detailed data, which is fantastic. But we did have some challenges where works nearby to our strand tree suds had sediment ingress. So you had blocked gullies and some design features where there wasn't enough water available to collect. So it's very much that thinking as every NBS goes in, really thinking about how is it going to be monitored and what's needed. And of course, we did have some lab analyses that were impacted by COVID. Oh, sorry, going back again. So another successful KPI was pollinator species increase. So again, for Vallée de Leaf, so yes, again, it was really straightforward, objective methodology, very established, timed counts of any pollinators visiting flowers within a quadrat. So you could look at seasonal changes, you could look at the choice of the flower types, you could look at all sorts of variables. So it's a great amount of data, really good amount of data, and very easily to interpret and demonstrate. But there were difficulties. How do you keep the same climatic conditions? You get the same different months of different conditions, and EcoServe, the models, when that data just looked very much coarse measures. So just looking at the pollinator habitats. So, and a challenging KPI for the quantitative data was PM2.5. So this was using this aeroqual sensor with monthly sample collections just for 2-minute counts. So it's very, very small count, but we did back this up by low-tech 24/7 data. But these 2-minute counts were very heavily influenced by climatic conditions, and the low-tech sensors were not always close to the interventions. And I show this windrows here on the bottom left-hand side. But this is showing the levels of PM2.5 particles according to where the wind comes from. And when the wind comes from the southeast, which is where the main industrial pollution is nearby across the Mersey estuary, when that's the wind is coming from those industrial areas, the particulate levels go right up. So it's trying to tease out, how do we determine, is there an impact of the interventions, but also having to interpret that around where the wind direction is from and the wind speed. So it's really teasing out what impact the interventions are doing. And again, with modeling data, it was just a little bit too coarse for looking at these interventions. So to conclude, the quantitative data was highly weather dependent, wind direction, as I mentioned, but also wind speed for pollinator species. When it's too windy, they just hide. And you need that, so you need that flexibility for the date collection dates, and you need that access to the interventions, crucial, you know, to be able to get there at all different times. And as I said, the good design of the interventions is crucial. So really thinking about how the monitoring is going to take place. So our perspective and the hindsights on KPI choice is really, all of the KPIs were useful. They all offered various insights and how the nature-based solutions could influence our social, economic and ecological composition and value. But with hindsight, we'd engaged in a more community-led engagement process to really highlight the Urban GreenUP project into Liverpool with the communities there, and opted for different interventions that are bigger, located in different places and more connected. And obviously connected will help biodiversity, sort of more links. So it's really thinking again how we do that, but that's with hindsight. And you know, and also thinking about really how you're going to monitor each nature-based solution. So really looking at that monitoring of the KPIs. So I hope that helps in choosing your KPIs. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stella. It was a very objective and efficient presentation. So right now I'll ask to Ezra to start sharing the presentation, please. Once you are ready. We can already see your screen.
No, you can see my screen. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Please carry on.
Thank you, everyone. We are the city of Izmir. Most of the KPIs are studied by Ege University, Izmir High Technical University, and BitNet, who is our IT partner, and Izmir Metropolitan Municipality was mostly in charge of the citizen engagement KPIs. So we have around 30 KPIs at the beginning of the project. Probably we have chosen a lot more KPIs, looking at Eclipse and working with the other cities. But after giving some thoughts on the how we are going to proceed with the KPIs and how we are going to collect data and stuff like that, and considering the resources we have, we later decided to have less KPIs than in Belgrade and Liverpool, if we compare the cities, the Balkan cities. So we have around 30 KPIs now. And I'm going to start with the quantitative KPIs and go through, while going through them, I'm going to go through the challenges and our experiences. So we have chosen to have carbon removed per hectare per year for our paint lenses, so the subdemo C and subdemo, let me see, B size actually. As we all know, urban vegetation works as a carbon sink and by offsetting the carbon dioxide concentration. We have the green shaded structures, new trees, green parklets, the new corridor around Peynircioğlu, starting from the Peynircioğlu stream towards Sassalı, the northern part of the city. So all these NBSs are related with this KPI, but most of the calculations are made for Peynircioğlu and Sassalı regions. So the structural data of plants were collected during the 6 months of the year from April to September, and they are put in the NI3 Eco program. As you can see in the graph, Peynircioğlu carbon around Peynircioğlu stream carbon removed increased by 271% compared to the baseline year, and Sassalı it's increased 782%. There are similar results for carbon stored by vegetation. It's another KPI that we have for Peynircioğlu, but the results for Sassalı are negative actually for that specific KPI, which I didn't want to take too much time. That's why I didn't put the graphics here. The main reason for that decrease in carbon stored by vegetation is the removal of the eucalyptus. I don't know if I pronounced it correctly in English, but most of the eucalyptus trees were removed from the area which had high canopies because they were not native. They were consuming too much water, and water is a big issue for Izmir, especially the last couple of years. So this was the main reason, but planting new trees and increasing tree cover create a significant impact, and it is seen from the results as well. In the long term, when the trees grow, when they have larger canopies, of course, it's going to get much better. The related KPI is the pollinator species that we have as a KPI. Native and pollinator-friendly plant species were selected to be around Peynircioğlu and Sassalı regions. There are 10 pollinators in Sassalı and 10 in Peynircioğlu. Again, every year from April to September, for the last 2 years, the structural data of the plants were collected. Microclimatic variables were also taken into account, and as Stella mentioned, there are a lot of different parameters while calculating these KPIs. The pollinator species increased 385% in Peynircioğlu due to the increase of linden trees, lavengers, bushes, lilacs, and Judas trees, and other plants. There were a lot of carpenter and flower bees, flies, and butterflies around the area. One setback is the mowing of the area, because as you know, local governments usually do a lot of mowing, and there was the cooperation between the departments of the local government was not very good at the beginning of the not at the beginning of the project, but let's say after we started the KPI collection process. So we had some setbacks there. We could have made better result at the end, but that hindered the data collection process. And we had some kind of pruning in different areas after we had planted the trees as well. That also had some setbacks in our results. But then they started working in coordination. Ege University was in charge of these, I think the last, the KPIs that I have mentioned. One last quantitative KPI that I'm going to mention, actually two of them are the mean levels of PM 2.5 and PM 10. The particulate matter are calculated using stationary and mobile devices. We couldn't have too much stationary devices since they were really expensive. That was another challenge we had. And during the pandemic, the procurement process was late. So we started to monitor it quite a little bit later than we expected. So the NBS, we had all these green areas around the energy and so but we wanted to focus on the areas which are more highly urbanized areas where it's actually something more where the car parks that we have put some arboreal plants, green shaded structures. So we try to get most of our data from those areas. And they are backed up by mobile stations. There are some improvements in PM10 especially, but there are so many parameters in the PM levels, as I think it was Stella mentioned that they had some industrial zones nearby. Here we have a really big industrial zone nearby in one part of the area. And during mobile data collection, it was observed that the green areas really decreased the PM levels when there were no winds. But especially during winter time when there is wind and a lot of fossil fuels are being used because of the winter and stuff like that, the PM levels increase high. And another observation is that during the beginning of the pandemic, the PM levels really decreased, but right after the lockdowns are over, it started to increase to the pre-pandemic levels. So another parameter that was also a setback is at one point during the around the Vilayet area, there was a construction very close. So it was another source for PM, for increasing the PM levels actually. So main takeaways from the qualitative KPIs is maintenance is quite important to have better solutions, especially for the green structures that you have implemented recently, because when you take care of them when they are really young, it helps them grow better. So we had some issues with the car park areas. The IVs didn't grow as much as we expected. But we have seen that the increasing the NBS clearly will lead to better results. The data team is quite important. One of the setbacks that we had during the project is the elections that we had at the beginning of the project. The whole management changed and they are still changing. Actually, we have to convince the management to do some of the actions and some of the KPIs, especially the communication, citizen communication actions is not going that well actually. Probably we are going to talk about that during the meeting next month. So we had a lot of setbacks in Izmir actually. So the minimum KPIs, we have chosen the energy saving from reduced building consumption and space accessibility. As you might remember, Izmir doesn't have building level NBS like Liverpool Valladolid. But we have our professors from Izmir Yüksek Teknoloji University modeled a five-store building around the car park area. The temperature decrease measured, I think Alicia showed the results of the temperature decrease KPI. We also measured that. I'm not showing it here, but we have managed to see around 1 degree of temperature decrease around the car park area where we had the green shaded structures. Considering, as I mentioned, the IVs didn't grow that much as expected at the beginning, and other plants have not grown fully, our professors decided to model a 2 degrees temperature decrease. So at the end, they turned all the energy to primary energy consumptions. They were modeled by software TRM. I don't know if it's pronounced correctly, but the increase for heating can be seen here is 2%, 2.8%. The cooling need decreased around 2%, and in total there's a 1.3% decrease, which is not very significant. So this is one of the results that is not very successful actually. But probably after the growth of all the green infrastructure and increasing the NBS around the area, the results might be better. Sorry. We have the green space accessibility KPI. Actually, this is all done by using the Copernicus land monitoring service, and the Izmir area maps are gathered from 2018. 2 neighborhoods were selected. I have put here only Mavişehir neighborhood, and all the residential plots that are 300 meters closer to urban areas, to the greenery areas, are calculated. So it is calculated that the green area around Mavişehir neighborhood has increased from 16% to 17%. Especially this area is around Peynircioğlu stream, which there were other green areas around, but they were not as connected, and the plant numbers and species are not as much as after the GreenUP intervention. So this is kind of a successful KPI, can say. When it comes to socioeconomic KPIs, as I said, we had some difficulties, and it has been really challenging for us. But you might remember that there's a agriculture center within the GreenUP project, which was built around the Sassuolo area. So this place was really important for doing some experiments about agriculture, because agriculture is very important in Izmir. There are a lot of plains and a lot of farmers in Izmir. So a lot of training activities have occurred. Primary school students, university students and academics, local governments, and people from other institutions, or as you can see from one of the pictures, there was a workshop about Yediz Delta with UNESCO, and other activities have taken place in the area. It has been around 14 activities, but these are the formal ones that have been arranged previously. The activity And there are a lot of people, citizens who come to the agriculture center to get information while visiting the Sasala area. We don't really have those numbers, so probably we have around 1,350 people within the 14 activities, but the total citizen relation is much more probably. The last KPI I have chosen is the job creation one. We have divided it to temporary jobs and permanent jobs. At the agriculture center, there are permanent jobs, including the beer car production. There are 10 people working in the center, organizing the events or doing some experiments at the agricultural area with academics, which I didn't put them in the number. And there is a water management department within the agriculture center that was built after the urban GreenUP project. Flood and water related, climate change related water management issues have become a big deal for Izmir. One of the reasons is because agriculture is very important, and around 80% of water is used in agriculture in Turkey in average. So they have a department now after the urban GreenUP project using the agriculture center as a base, and they work there. So we have around 88 people that, or even more. I didn't put some of the interventions that we had, but I didn't have the numbers of the workers, so I didn't put some of them, but probably we have more job creation. For example, parklets, there have been 4 parklets in the project, but Israel is trying to make other parklets other than the GreenUP, so they have recruited more people. So this is pretty much what we have so far. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ezra, for the insightful testimonial. I'll just, if possible, please, could you just turn off the, could you just mute
Yeah,
the...
I'm trying to...
Sure. You just have to press the icon. In the meantime, we've had one question. It was Célia Ferreira. She was asking, she was saying that she had some troubles hearing well the presentation. If it was possible to share the presentation later. Well, and also the recording. Regarding the recording, it will be available for all the attendees, so that won't be a problem. And well, if you, Ezra, don't mind, we can share with Celia your presentation you just provided. All right. Okay, so I'll also show my screen. Okay. Just 1 second. Wanted to show. Okay. So I don't thank you all for all the testimonials you've given. I think it has been a very productive webinar, or at least we've all got to know and a very deep and insightful how to say. I mean, all the front runner cities we are now very aware of all the benefits that the project Urban GreenUP has given to the 3 cities of Valladolid, Izmir, and Liverpool. I would kindly ask for everyone that has any questions I would like to pose. We only have 10 minutes, so this must be a little bit brief right now. But please go ahead. If you don't want to speak, you may just write. I think I've seen something. well, Ezra is saying that she has connection issues. All right. Well, I can ask right away if none of the attendees would like to pose any question. For the front runner seat is, I mean, this has been quite a journey, more than 5 years now. If you had to choose among all the KPIs that you've chosen, if there's one that you would, I could say is the best, and on the other hand, if there's one that probably you wouldn't recommend very much to have, just for us to all have an idea. You may start, Alicia from Valladolid, if you don't mind.
It's a very difficult question.
Yeah,
because,
I think so.
I couldn't choose only one, but I will definitely choose one or a few related to air quality, like concentration of pollutants. In terms of, we heard the difficulties of particles, but there are other pollutants that can be measured. Some KPI related with temperature, evident, and as you saw, some KPIs related to green connectivity and green infrastructure accessibility in terms of GIS. In fact, as you saw, the three cities saw different KPIs, or sorry, the same KPIs, the results of the same KPIs, and we were not agree. We didn't agree on the KPIs that we were going to talk, and we chose the same. So that means something. That means that they are visible and easy to, for instance, the pollinators, nutrient abatement about water, of course, connectivity and accessibility related in terms of green areas with GIS, very important, pollinators, and related to socioeconomic, two of us identified the green intelligence awareness, in fact, of how many people we were involved in our activities, in our social activities. So I think that would, my top 5 would be that.
Okay. Great. Actually, you were saying one of the things that I noticed during the presentations were some of the KPIs selected were the same. So I think that shows everything. Please, Stella, carry on. Give your opinion, please.
Yes, I agree with Alicia. It's very much there's the ones that show very clear results, like the pollinator, the species, the quantitative water, a nutrient abatement, and the particulate matter. And I mean, I'm very much a quantitative scientist, so I do lean towards those. But I think they do show very clear results on how the interventions are interacting, or are benefiting and impacting on the environment, and how it changes it. So we can look at, like, for nutrient abatement, we can look at the whole water course around the interventions, upstream and downstream, and we can really see how the interventions are impacting on the water pollution values and things like that. So I think, yes, but it is very difficult to choose amongst 40 KPIs also.
Yeah, I can imagine. I don't know, Ezra, if you are able to at least speak.
I agree with both Stella and Alicia, and I would always choose the pollinators, carbon removal, or temperature decrease, or air quality KPIs that are really relevant and important for the challenges that we are facing in the cities. Of course, the citizen involvement and those kind of KPIs, socioeconomic KPIs, are very important. I cannot deny that, but it has been very challenging for Izmir. Izmir is a metropolitan city. Some of the departments work in silos. they don't even communicate with each other sometimes. It has been really hard, and the city has gone through a lot during these 4 or 5 years. They had a really big flood disaster. They had a big earthquake that some of the neighborhoods buildings have demolished or And suddenly the priority of the local government changes. They focus all their resources to those areas at those times. So it has been really challenging because we had so many. I didn't even talk about pandemic because we all had issues about that. So it was really hard. And we didn't have really good KPI results about those KPIs.
All right. Well, I don't see any questions, so I think we'll finish for now. We're almost running out of time, so we can call it off. Thank you so much, everyone, especially to Jesus, Alicia, Stella, Ezra, for giving your great and very insightful presentations. And thank you all the Urban GreenUP Consortium and Network of Cities members. Thank you all for attending this webinar. And we are available for any questions you may have. You can always email us. So thank you so much, everyone. Oh, I forgot to mention, thank you, Oiko, also from Icons for helping us with the technical part of the webinar. Okay, so thank you all, and we wish you a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. See you soon.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Bye.